The sun dipped below the jagged silhouette of the Caucasus Mountains, casting long, amber shadows across the fertile valley of Shulaveri. It was 8,000 years ago, a time when the world was measured by the rhythm of the seasons and the slow, predictable crawl of the stars. Eliana knelt by the edge of a small clearing, her fingers stained a deep, bruised purple. She was not a queen or a priestess, but a humble gatherer whose keen eyes had noticed something peculiar about the wild grapes that draped themselves like heavy curtains over the low-hanging branches of the oaks. Weeks earlier, she had filled a large, porous clay vessel with the overripe fruit, intending to save their sweetness for the coming winter. She had crushed them with a flat stone to fit more into the narrow neck of the pot, then buried it partially in the cool, dark earth near the back of her family's shelter. Today, driven by a thirst that the mountain springs could not quite quench, she had uncovered the vessel to see what remained of her harvest. As she lifted the heavy stone lid, a scent unlike any she had ever known billowed forth. It was sharp, yet floral, sweet, but with a strange, underlying musk that tickled the back of her throat and teased her senses. She peered inside. The juice was no longer the pale, clear liquid of the fresh fruit. It had transformed into a dark, swirling nectar, alive with tiny, dancing bubbles that hissed softly against the rough clay walls. Eliana hesitated, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Was it a poison? Or a gift from the ancient spirits of the soil? She dipped a small wooden bowl into the liquid and cautiously brought it to her lips. The first sip was startling. It stung the tongue with a vibrant acidity, followed immediately by a warmth that bloomed in her chest like a second sun. It was the concentrated taste of the earth itself, the minerals of the rock, the rain of the spring, and the heat of the summer. As the bowl emptied, the world seemed to soften at the edges. The anxieties of the hunt and the encroaching cold of the night felt suddenly distant, replaced by a profound sense of connection to the land beneath her feet. She didn't know then that she was the first to witness the miracle of fermentation, the divine alchemy where nature takes the humble sugar of the vine and transforms it into the very spirit of civilization. That night, she shared the brew with her kin. They sat around the communal fire, eyes widening as the deep crimson blood of the earth passed between them. They spoke of things they had never found the words for, their laughter rising into the thick smoke of the hearth. By morning, the secret of the qvevri was etched into the memory of the tribe. The wild vines were no longer just a source of food. They were a source of communal wonder. As the seasons turned, they began to select the best vines, learning to prune and protect them with care. The journey of the grape had begun, a liquid thread that would eventually weave its way through the tapestries of empires, the rituals of gods, and the heart of human history. From these humble mountains, the nectar was poised to conquer the world. Little did they know that the crimson stain on their fingers was the first stroke of a story that would take millennia to tell. Little did they know that the crimson stain on their fingers was the first stroke of a story that would take millennia to tell. As the nomadic echoes faded into the structured silence of settled civilizations, the wild vine followed the migration of man with the silent persistence of a shadow. It descended from the rugged heights of the Caucasus, traveling through the dusty heat of the Levant until it found the lush, silt-rich embrace of the Nile Delta. Here, the liquid was no longer a fortunate accident of fermented forage. It was the blood of the earth, refined by the hands of masters who treated every cluster like a sacred relic. In the shadow of rising monuments, the first great vintners emerged. They were not merely farmers, but architects of flavor, trellising the vines to shield the delicate fruit from the relentless Egyptian sun. By the time of the Old Kingdom, the fermentation process had evolved into a sophisticated alchemy. Workers crushed the dark grapes in great stone vats, their rhythmic treading accompanied by melodic songs that invoked the favor of Osiris. To these people, the juice was the essence of the god of rebirth, a medium through which the mortal world could touch the divine and ensure the continuity of life itself. The vessels changed, too. Gone were the primitive skins of the mountain tribes, replaced by tall, slender amphorae made of sun-baked clay. These jars were more than simple containers. They were the first scrolls of enological data. Scribes painstakingly inscribed the seals with the year of the harvest, the name of the vineyard, and the quality of the vintage. This was the birth of the appellation, a recognition that the soil, the terroir, imparted a unique soul to the liquid within. Wine became the currency of the elite and the lubricant of diplomacy. In the grand halls of Memphis and Thebes, golden chalices were filled to the brim with deep rubies and pale ambers. It was used to seal treaties between kings and to accompany the dead on their long journey into the afterlife. To die without a jar of wine in one's tomb was to face eternity with a parched and forgotten spirit. Yet, as the ships of the Phoenicians began to navigate the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean, the secret could no longer be contained by the pharaohs. These daring merchant mariners, the purple people, saw the potential of the vine as a liquid gold. They loaded their cedar-planked vessels with saplings and jars, spreading the culture of the grape to every rocky coast they touched. From the hills of Canaan to the distant shores of what would become Greece, the vine took root in new soils, adapting its character to the salty sea air and the limestone cliffs. The world was shrinking, connected by a network of maritime trade routes, and at the center of this web was the dark, intoxicating pulse of the vine. It was no longer a mountain mystery. It was the foundation of an expanding economy and the precursor to a new kind of social order. As the sun set over the Aegean, lighting the waves in a brilliance that matched the color of a fine vintage, the stage was set for a civilization that would elevate wine to the very pinnacle of philosophy and art. The vine had found its voice, and soon it would speak through the mouths of poets, philosophers, and conquerors alike. The vine had found its voice, and it spoke through the mouths of poets, philosophers, and conquerors alike as the classical world began to bloom. In the marble-laden halls of Athens, the symposium became the crucible of Western thought, where the crater sat at the center of every meaningful dialogue. It was here that the sharpest minds, Socrates, Plato, and their disciples, diluted the potent juice with fresh spring water, seeking a precise balance between sobriety and divine madness. They believed that wine was a mirror for the soul, a medium through which the truth, or aletheia, could be glimpsed through the shifting haze of human ego. The vine was no longer merely an agricultural success. It was a sacred bridge to the gods. Dionysus, the twice-born god of the grape, became the patron of the theater and the wild, untamed spirit of liberation, his cult spreading like a burgeoning root system through the rocky soil of the Peloponnese, forever linking the harvest to the heights of human creativity. As the Roman eagle began its disciplined ascent, the culture of the grape underwent a monumental transformation from the aesthetic to the imperial. The Romans did not merely enjoy wine. They codified and systematized it. They mapped the hills of the Italian peninsula, identifying the volcanic richness of the Falernian slopes and the sun-drenched terracing of the Amalfi coast as the birthplaces of liquid gold. To the Roman mind, a conquered territory was not truly civilized until the first vines were planted and the first press was constructed. From the chalky plains of Gaul to the misty, northern borders of the Rhine, the legionaries marched not just with iron swords, but with cuttings of Vitis vinifera tucked into their gear. They understood that to plant a vineyard was to claim the land forever, rooting the Roman identity into the very bedrock of Europe through an enduring agricultural conquest. In the bustling port of Ostia, the air grew thick with the heavy scent of pitch and fermenting juice as thousands of amphorae were offloaded from massive grain ships. These terracotta vessels, sealed with pine resin and stamped with the marks of prestigious estates, were the true currency of the Mediterranean. Wine flowed like blood through the veins of the empire, nourishing the common soldier in his damp barracks and the senator in his sprawling villa. It was the great equalizer and the great divider, categorized by vintage and origin, giving rise to the first true connoisseurs who could distinguish the smoky undertones of a Campanian white from the honeyed thickness of a Cretan red. The trade routes were the lifeblood of this era, ensuring that the nectar of the gods reached the furthest corners of the known world. Yet, beneath the grandeur of the Roman feasts and the clashing of gladiatorial steel, a quieter revolution was brewing in the provinces. In the deepening shadow of the empire's eventual decline, a new faith began to stir, one that would take the ancient symbolism of the vine and elevate it to the highest spiritual plane. The blood of the grape was becoming the blood of a new covenant, a sacred mystery that would survive the fall of temples and the burning of great libraries. As the Roman roads began to crumble and the light of the classical world flickered, the vine retreated into the cool, silent cloisters of the monasteries. There, behind thick stone walls, the secrets of the harvest were meticulously preserved by those who saw the work of the vineyard as a form of divine prayer. In the bustling port of Ostia, the air grew thick with the heavy scent of pitch and fermenting juice as thousands of amphorae were offloaded from massive grain ships. These terracotta vessels, sealed with pine resin and stamped with the marks of prestigious estates, were the true currency of the Mediterranean. Wine flowed like blood through the veins of the empire, nourishing the common soldier in his damp barracks and the senator in his sprawling villa. It was the great equalizer and the great divider, categorized by vintage and origin, giving rise to the first true connoisseurs who could distinguish the smoky undertones of a Campanian white from the honeyed thickness of a Cretan red. The trade routes were the lifeblood of this era, ensuring that the nectar of the gods reached the furthest corners of the known world. Yet, beneath the grandeur of the Roman feasts and the clashing of gladiatorial steel, a quieter revolution was brewing in the provinces. In the deepening shadow of the empire's eventual decline, a new faith began to stir, one that would take the ancient symbolism of the vine and elevate it to the highest spiritual plane. The blood of the grape was becoming the blood of a new covenant, a sacred mystery that would survive the fall of temples and the burning of great libraries. As the Roman roads began to crumble and the light of the classical world flickered, the vine retreated into the cool, silent cloisters of the monasteries. There, behind thick stone walls, the secrets of the harvest were meticulously preserved by those who saw the work of the vineyard as a form of divine prayer. As the Renaissance dawned, the vine shed its liturgical robes. It became a muse for the philosopher and a vital companion to the artist. In the sun-drenched villas of Tuscany, wine was celebrated as the ultimate expression of human ingenuity. During this era of awakening, the first glass bottles appeared, dark, bulbous, and hand-blown, promising a longevity that wooden tuns could never provide. The perfection of the cork stopper, a humble plug of Mediterranean bark, changed the trajectory of the liquid forever. Suddenly, wine could sleep in the cool dark. It could age, evolving from a fleeting pleasure into a complex masterpiece that deepened and matured with the passing of time. Yet, the horizon was expanding far beyond the borders of Europe. The great wooden hulls of towering galleons now carried dormant cuttings across the vast, terrifying expanse of the Atlantic. In the damp holds of these ships, ancestral vines patiently traveled to the volcanic slopes of the Americas and the rugged capes of South Africa. These maritime pioneers carried the heavy burden of tradition, unaware that new world terrains would transform their beloved grapes into something entirely unrecognizable. The stage was being set for a global revolution, where the ancient, sacred secrets of the cloister would meet the untamed, wild spirit of a frontier. The noble vine was no longer a prisoner of the Mediterranean, it was a conqueror of continents. As the 17th century bled into the 18th, the alchemy of the cellar began to merge with the early sparks of scientific inquiry and reason. The world stood poised on the precipice of a sparkling new age, where the liquid in the glass would reflect the brilliance of the Enlightenment itself. The world stood poised on the precipice of a sparkling new age, where the liquid in the glass would reflect the brilliance of the Enlightenment itself. In the elegant salons of Paris and the intellectual coffeehouses of London, wine became a catalyst for conversation and revolutionary thought. In the laboratories of the mind, the mystical hum of the cellar gave way to the rigorous scrutiny of the microscope. No longer was this sparkle in a bottle of champagne seen as a devil's curse or an accidental flaw. Instead, it became the refined mastery of pressure and glass. Men like Dom Perignon had laid the foundation, but it was the rising merchant class of the 1700s who turned the effervescent nectar into a symbol of prestige and celebration. This was the era of the glass bottle's evolution, sturdier, darker, and sealed with the resilient bark of the cork oak, allowing wine to travel, age, and endure the passage of years without turning to vinegar in the hold of a ship. By the mid-1800s, the art of winemaking was revolutionized by Louis Pasteur, who unmasked the invisible architect of fermentation, yeast. Science finally caught up with tradition, allowing vintners to steer the life of the grape with unprecedented precision. Yet, as the world became smaller through steamships and trade, a silent assassin hitched a ride across the Atlantic. Phylloxera, the microscopic louse, arrived from the New World, devouring the ancient roots of Europe's most storied vineyards. The great French wine blight threatened to erase millennia of viticulture in a few short decades, turning lush hillsides into graveyards of withered wood. It was a moment of existential crisis, a botanical war that was only won when the noble European Vitis vinifera was grafted onto the rugged, resistant rootstocks of American vines. This desperate union saved the industry, creating a global brotherhood of the grape that transcended borders and bridged continents in a way that politics never could. As the 20th century dawned and the smoke of industrialization filled the air, the wine world expanded further still, reaching into the sweeping valleys of Napa, the rugged slopes of the Andes, and the sun-drenched plains of Australia. The Judgment of Paris in 1976 shattered the old hierarchies, proving that excellence was not the exclusive birthright of the old world, but a gift that could flourish wherever the soil and sun were met with passion. Technology brought temperature-controlled stainless steel and precision viticulture, yet the soul of the wine remained tied to the soil, the elusive, poetic concept of terroir. Today, a glass of wine is a liquid library, containing the grit of the Roman soldier, the silence of the Benedictine monk, and the ingenuity of the modern scientist. It is a story of incredible resilience, a testament to how a humble berry transformed the course of human civilization. From the sun-baked amphorae of the Caucasus to the high-tech, gravity-fed cellars of the present, the vine remains our most constant companion, a bridge between the physical and the sublime. As we tilt the glass to the light, we witness the crimson or gold, reminding us that we are drinking compressed time itself. The journey of the grape is infinite, forever aging, yet eternally reborn in every harvest, proving that while empires may fall and climates may shift, the sacred, ancient dance between man and the vine will never truly end. It is our heritage, held in a fragile vessel, waiting for the next cork to be pulled. Thank you for listening to the story of the wine.